Hello, this is a video regarding uses of the phrase, the science, or uses of the word with the definite article in front of it, the science. Uses of that to separate the syntax, fact, cheaping nature, impositions, and exploitations of them involved with the logistics of the science of countering the coronavirus, where and how the identity of the ground locations, all of them, including medical locations, they are involved with corruption and with lie progressions, and hiding those lie progressions per the rules with uses of creating instances with locations that can then be that are then referenced by people who are the where and how investigators, and vetting of perception of all identity the ground locations originally and still are recorded as the actual science that is not denying using what is true always. We have people using sloppy English, doctors that know words only because they're not with our regular books, and because the lead up to the different sciences has originally and still all victims already being and having been used remotely through time, intercities, interages of campuses, database relationships, private, interscientists, and intercampuses simultaneously, propagated not just for their nature's needs to value roles with, fake sides of correlation nature, with the creation of instances that are being used criminally, with people interbranch and their sources recorded distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously being and having been criminally foreign influenced. And that phrase is needed to be used in every modern nation at once. And they need to counter the criminal foreign influence that is not sourced by one nation, but it's fluent through each. So it is sourced through each. It is adapted by. In other words, it is screened through each. We have patriotism natures that are a certain kind of predator. Other countries, nations have their form of patriot natures. Their uses of their identities that simultaneously can't defend that and afford all that is capable of logic, short words, protracted, using correlation, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means, which the value of the inherent is more powerful while being the value of the order of the finite, the smallest thing. So when experts are getting over by exploiting where and how the perfect world is forsaken and maintains self-value, having been forsaken because of why they're forsaking it now. So the styles that pretended other then and now, not by accident, had left manifest, which was engineered with and as the value of those uses of sequence treatments, premises treatments, finite, active, and progressive treatments, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, and treatments of identity. See, we have a basic identity theft fraud rules, /fraud rules, worse than just identity theft, worse than just identity fraud. For example, also as the natures of that, where and how we have falsified police reports rules, that the only allowed to be existent natures of police originally and still are in relationship to the elements of correlation, which shows that our founding parents were forced to words and theater to entertain that and to hide their roles with the American Revolution, make a theater narrative about what brought them together, because they knew they wouldn't be able to be, wouldn't be able to, they already had locations, areas in the states, north and south, sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, slaves, and blaming everyone, including our founding fact, cheaping nature slaves. Everyone's sickly, distinctly, too. Specifically, not just for the people to blame other things, others and themselves for the cause of that. Everyone too terrified to say, oh, a breaching method. But everyone has to speak anyway. This is a forced method. It was force sustained. Not one has trained. It is evidence per science proper. That and how. Simultaneously, all this time and increasingly, they bring up serious subjects like slavery, and they never bring up how that breaching method simultaneously existent is tied to all the questions regarding that, regarding things associated with slavery, regarding things associated with every element, positive and negative, as treated by the people in those contexts. That's everyone. That wasn't just crazy laws against people based on how much pigment. This was consciously sowing us to syntax nature, and then the defenses of it, premises treatments, tactically ulterior from the long words and the short words, that our nature was revealed to, as syntax nature to make. So we have positive and negative, what causes positive and or negative value nature progressions. Acts and natures now employed with and as a negative value nature in systems, negative value identity of negative value nature progression, self-valuing system /S. We have fake natures of integrity. They have to pretend this is personal too, to themselves and to others. In other words, in relationship to those simple elements of correlation, in relationship to the increasing identity /S of significance and of relativity, those simple truths that are relevant where and how we aren't allowed, and we have sabotaged offensively all that is capable of our correlation nature at each age of fact treatment nature, at each location, sickly distinctly, in relationship to this being and having been. Not just for that. That was kept later to keep everyone blaming everything for everyone's self-valued uses of tactically, criminally foreign influence premises treatments. Value progression treatment, identity treatments, finite, active, progressive, fact treatments, positive treatments. The science of positive discerns that and how there are 5 distinct identities of the same identity of volume that has a positive or nature or negative relationship to itself. In relationship to what is simultaneously true to and positive to, and actually as the value of sequence true before the order of the finite, before the smallest thing, while as it distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Before and while as the value of the order of what is active, simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously too. Further, while it is progressive, like what is the progressive value /S? What is it going to cause? Where you have people stacking in New York City, and what did it already cause? And what did the people that have to react to that being caused upon them? Then they had to react too, because everyone's blaming other things, others themselves. Not just that's part of the roles with the things upon them, and that has to pretend other. So this engineered identity of the ground, jobs, titles, experts, needed to hide life progressions per a method that knew it was going to have a whole bunch of victim predators. Sickly distinctly, each age of fact treatment nature, from off campuses, from off database relationships, from off overt criminal enterprises. There are influences that keep and having that kept on off their organization, on off all identity grounds locations, areas, states, every modern nation kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, and progressive lies, identity thefts and frauds, roles, styles, natures, needs, uses of people's names, uses of identity ground locations, roles with instances where people have communications, where and how they have lies pretended the truth, like they have the right. They're pretending a lie is the truth, or you could say they're using a truth for lie, regarding where they go back and forth with questioning in courts. They have been fabricating audio and video styles and methods and motivations, natures, needs, interests, having been used remotely as well. Fabricating audio and video sequences, pretending not to realize simultaneously, which is also evidence. Now, this is a quality of fact sheet, this requires. Mandated law requires when people have violence upon them, they have to have a peaceful means to counter it. And if people stack their names into roles with illusions and with uses of them in conjunction and collusion with those people, we have to be allowed to use their names too. But they're forging and switching names into branch. They did this through administrations. They also have the Wethersfield town offices. They have religious locations involved with the people on off campuses of each age and nature. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. It's evidence also how they pretend to others simultaneously, but others actually recorded, and they'll admit this. But this is also because of how we have to address how the people involved with instances in our value/value progression in life, where and how they're involved with identity thefts and frauds, styles and methods actually recorded, where they're and how involved with sequence shifts, where and how they're involved with interbranch, all private tied to them, including the news media, including the prisons tied to them, including all private tied to that, including the campuses that train them. Again, this is a vertical horizontal database method, but that's only part of it. And that's private databases simultaneously. So, and per a method that keeps live progressions, maintain needed self-value, where and how our investigators, and vetting identity, people in relationship to an science, where and how that was made to be abridged as victims that never heard science that from its identity, from any identity, not self-valuing it, abridged. Constitution abridged. Human need. So what we could afford in our resources is filtered through a breaching method reality forced, all to collusion with it. Reality/S. All tactically ulterior from that one that is true always, while as exceptions is still its identity of truth. See, we have the identity thefts and frauds since through time. They are remote uses of the Obama administration, of the Trump administration that did not want that. They don't know how to counter a lot of things at once. So what they did was self-value their needs to use a whole bunch of, people that never came through a campus not inclusion with this, which is inter-campuses, intra-campuses, simultaneously. And it is further private database relationships too. Further and further simultaneously further the database relationships of the schools. This is a method that keeps, arrays of fake sides of correlation nature and uses of non-civility in contexts that are involved with sequence shifts. So as this phrase, the science, and they say, that's all I'm trying to say. They bring Fauci's name up, like the new health people leaders, but they leave out what President Trump was begging to be able to talk about, to have a quality of fact-shaping nature afforded to be able to address. For example, there are a whole bunch of things with the logistics of the quote, the science, unquote, that have nothing to do with science. And doctors that don't have the mental capacity to discern that, they are too much being and having been victims of it. They are too much being and having been delusions wrought. And criminally foreign influence and rules, crimes, predators, needs, and styles. Roles first. Further uses of the integrity of the ground locations they are with. Not one of them is acceptable per the science. We're going to address how Hartford, Connecticut, not one location is acceptable. Not one in the suburbs across the board of nations, let alone urban areas where they have people stacking like in New York City. That's not by accident. This is a breaching method, employed method. Then they're pretending to be, they're pretending our founders endorse that because of how they're child abused. Every single person. The evidences of it. Well, what evidence is? You guys don't follow mandated law. You attach me since I was a kid. And other kids, you attach them to fake locations, fake sequence relationships, fake words with our family members. And you have connections between that everywhere we go. Former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities, Robert Luskin, in a 2006 district court case associated with Fox Connecticut News, CNN, WFSB. These are also people sources of CNN. Interbranch, individually grouped it together with various natures of courts, recorded a whole bunch of ways by correlation natures, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. Also confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They'll pretend, oh, that's evidence too. Leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context, and since Wethersfield, interbranch, intercities, they had roles with various natures of police forms. Personally criminally involved with former director of the FBI and federal criminal co-defendants of his and their family members, leading up to cases and since, and in cases that had nothing to do with it. Their roles with that, remote uses of investigations and investigators, and means to discern that, but it makes a whole bunch of people's nervous system and sense and sensibilities go nuts. The only people we have to defend us, not by accident, breaching method, breaching screens, tools, weapons, worse. They want to talk about their sacrifice, but they want to do it offensively against strangers dishonestly, and letting it be having been used as a breaching screen, tool, weapon, worse since founding. You have some sick predators because you have some sick predators upon them. You're forcing them to blame other things, others themselves, for all the collusion between the criminal and seditious natures of positive and negative treatments originally instilled to all locations, in collusion with this setting up instances, uses of identity, ground locations, all uses of the phenomena, how they have other nations in there, how they have the DACA program. These trade agreements involved with cliques with and family members of other people involved, including deans and their family members, whether they realize or not. And it's not personal; they have to pretend that it's personal. That's why they make confessions from strangers, all tied intercities. The same people from my town involved with identity theft fraud, people that weren't even in classes with me. See, they put themselves backed into so many illusions tied to their roles with insights into Washington, D.C. and the World Trade Center, that they were made to self-value by the proverbial devil, by a breaching method, because these are the people involved with inter-campuses, in-truck campuses, predicate acts, delivery system acts and methods, bound roles. These are juxtaposed natures of crimes against our little kids and against adults at the same time. And no one wants to face prosecutors and judges that are forging names and switching names, let alone as non-lawyers, and where they have recorded originally and still evidence that and how lawyers and the bar itself is recorded disgrace. Science never spoke for one identity of the ground location. They got to be out of their minds. See, they leave out so many distinctions because they want to play this job game narrative. They want to play this title game narrative. They want to play, the wrong people. We have a whole bunch of people that are doctors, like of mental health. Their delusions rot, criminally foreign influence, medicine. Ever see the all kinds of natures of organized crime juxtaposed, and with various natures of courts, and again too with layers of corruption, lipoaggressions tied to that. So we're going to examine this, and so you better not. So right where George Washington had to come meet with the French general before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, had to secure the means, was also forced our founding parents. Everyone was extorted and counter-extorted in layers by the method that engineered that. Short of being able to be a unity as anything else but that, or what would be seen trying to think. There are logic, for example, practical reason reveals that and how the ancients farmed. In other words, they had revealed things working together, being led by the identity of relativity onto all things. All different things make different things, types of soil. Different phenomena are associated with that. You could watch YouTube videos about composting, and stuff like this. But these are all broken sciences. See, but this takes the tribe. This takes the location, area, state working together on the same page to make these soils, to bring the elements together, to make not just fertilizers, to make to make those hyper good conditions that are the source of and as evolution's fruits and gifts, means from nowhere, unfathomed, and how we are fact cheap in nature. So what we have to do, we have on top of this too, and rather than just syntactically blaming archetypal predicate acts, delivery system method, we could draw reliefs for all identity ground locations. And that is the language and the science that reveals those most hurt by all that is simultaneously. Too well entrenched, too well leveraged, and too well screened, and too well self-valued having been screened. It is critical till we understand how and why James Madison couldn't sign the Declaration of Independence. And if he had, we would never have been able to have Marbury versus Madison, which we are in offensively, per the child abuse method that is intercampuses of each age and nature. This is private schools, locations next to the private schools, locations next to the public schools connected. Also how that is used. Also per how it is from off the locations. Maintain maintenance of it. Because of how then it keeps on off the campuses, layers, motivations, nature, needs, interests, to hide life aggressions, to value such, without even realizing, right back to all identity ground locations. We're in a semi-ancient trap as clear as day. So one must rap, hear many pray. And anyone who gets in, we need to have passions and emotions, how everyone's faking it in relationship to such elements of correlation nature, preventing us to short words, to demonstrate it's unacceptable, the people stacking in New York City. Those are short words. We're gonna vote on the things I say like that. And I'm gonna show you how to call out the sickness from the human fact cheaping nature, the fake news. And it's not personal. They are recorded offensively pretending such is personal. Sequence shifting. Needing to leave out how when we ask calmly for help, they bring in more names. Their reaction and more names, and people pretend they don't know what they're talking about. Respond for rape threats and for confessions regarding the principal child offenders campus before that was caught. During that time, before it was caught, and since that interbranch had roles with that, That's what's actually recorded. They forged names and switched names. They prevented me from free speech. And they attached me to fake words that way, offensively. And they did that multi-front with WFSB as people involved with locations next to WFSB. And as the people that are ducking behind, how they have all these foreign and domestic involved with identity thefts and frauds with them, sequence shifts with them, finite, active, progressive lies with them, roles with overt criminal enterprises with them, the branches of government and them distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously too. Then they're all naive little kids. Then they want to pretend adults as that theater, as who's going to be roles with it is being propagated, fake. People that lose faith and need to react when they find corruption or when they have it told to them, they don't know how to react because of the people, using that as evidence. They're valuing, people don't, we believe that we don't want people to lose faith in democracy. They don't care about democracy. Follow mandated law for them, including the incoming administration. Let's go. Because the Obama administration was asked, the Trump administration was asked, and earlier administrations were asked. And the interbranch locations are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated offensively having been fabricating audio and video, as the people from Connecticut, intercities, and worse than just interstates, but timed intercities too, sequence shifts, roles, final uses of such, as the people then in the World Trade Center, a role tied to the people in the World Trade Center attack context. Ones that didn't get hurt and ones that are victims too, that were also victims of the ones that didn't get hurt too, like a Scalora family, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the DeMora families and with others, with dozens of people on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off Trinity College, involved with predicate acts with them, and co-defendants, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants. There is a Mike Kerr and Joe DeMoro and a Ray Colella who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they were influenced to roles setting up instances where, like, I never saw Ray Colella around the park down the street from my house, even though he was my neighbor all those years. And there were a couple exceptions. The only setup tied to that, and his cousins and then people associated with the DeMora family, the Scalora family. Also, they never went to my school even. I didn't have classes with them. They've been attached to me to fake locations with investigations, vetting identities, that also film them trying to make instances, like with illusions, tied to those sequence shifts, tied to the roles with falsified police reports, tied to the roles of predicate acts, with people on the child offender registry, also tied to the people who answer the phones, with the news media and with the Wethersfield police, also tied to people with doctors who are doctors of psychology, psychiatry. Now, they're also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, criminally describing people's behavior, criminally pretending passions or emotions fake, and with physical delusions regarding people's behavior. And they have the online platforms involved with this. So they have these narratives where they have the people who everyone's speaking through others, that's being exploited. They pretend they don't realize it. So because no one's following mandated law. And, we're supposed to carry legal books about it. And then we have lawyers who are experts of the law who are still in collusion with them lying about what mandated law is. We're going to follow correlation nature simultaneously, inherent, active, and progressive means. Evidence is also how they haven't been following mandated law. So Hartford Hospital, 3 times they forced me in there after they were involved with rape threats online and involved with confessions regarding untimely death rolls and drug crime rolls and medicines crimes rolls and predicate acts rolls with people on my street. And I never saw them on my street. I never had a conversation with this Leahy family. The whole bunch of them, working with the Hartford Hospital and the Lombardo family, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with the police and the courts with the predicate acts of my street and with the houses they involved with that, with forging names and switching names. So you watch your dirty aggression into Branch, and you get on paper now. I'm gonna ask you again. You guys have recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. The courts and the police forms switch sequences. They delay responses while they're fabricating audio and video and valuing that having been in their own databases, in the campus's databases, and with their narratives regarding what happens at locations and instances where people come into contact in life. Big world, small world, breaks you here. CT must break to find the seed, beware. So there were some sick people involved with this. Now the house on the corner of Church Street and Main Street is also one of the houses involved with doctors. We'll record it. I don't know if it's real or it's made up, but these are the people also involved with what is also recorded, juxtaposed ways. WTNH, WFSB, Fox Connecticut News involved with that corner house, also with their narratives, and tied to the people also on and off their location, involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime acts with them, predicate acts rules with them, if as wrongdoing or whatever. We're going to examine how they are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. So if they want to deny the confessions, in other words, this is also demonstrable, but you have to have people follow mandated law. When someone makes a complaint, you have to give them, you have to get, that's what they're doing. They're preventing me from communicating with people because these are cliques. Dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court are personally criminally involved with this Leahy family, and their kids are involved with it. Since they were kids, they were involved with it. They have generations of people in the Leahy family involved with predicate acts with Hartford Hospital, with lawyers and other doctors and judges. The Hartford courts also involved with them, leading up to the Trade Center attack too, with locations crimes and roles with the on-off CCSU with sequence shifts, and including their roles offensively jumping into my conversations about strangers from my town who were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts with the locations next to CCSU, and with people on and off the campus involved criminally with the child campuses intercities with them. And they sequence regarding that because of how they use the investigators for that, and everyone's family members and neighbors to keep their sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase, to keep their fact-cheaping nature. We're going to refer to this as, or as syntax nature. So, that I ask you nice, then you're going to describe my behavior with physical delusion. Then you're going to pretend it's personal. We're going to stay focused on the rape threats and the sequence shifts and the identity thefts and frauds, falsified police reports rolls. These are a whole bunch of names. 2 Mendez police involved with as the ones over the past 4 months, people with the name Sullivan with Wethersfield Police, with the Wethersfield town offices. There's also an Inspector Mike, and there are a whole bunch of people with the name Mike. There's an Officer Jerry Miller who recorded, confessed, demonstrated Jerry Kurz. There's a Mike Kerr. There's the Jerry Kurz are involved. That was before the pandemic problems, right? So every time I try to go to address it, they confess things with strangers. Now I don't even know if that was really even them. People pretending to be them on Facebook, but it is recorded true them. They're involved with that anyway because I don't know them. The only time I know them with them recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, trying to set up instances where their illusions, they lied. They lied to some girl like a Mulcahy. No, that's another girl. I never saw her. So it wasn't her. I never had anything to do with a conversation with her. A conversation with anyone else around her. Besides Thaddeus Grabowski, who's one of the federal criminals, but who since before that, who then was one of the federal criminal code defendants, a former director of the FBI, who's also involved with the narratives in the fake conversations about police and agencies and police equipment that the Leahy family and the Lombardo family pretended I had with themselves and others, and with other doctors that say they forged their name. One of them said they forged their names, knowing that they were no longer going to be working with the Institute of Living on the campus of Hartford Hospital. So they use the hospital locations for mental evaluations of people, and that is also the people involved with setting up instances to hide their roles with criminally foreign. They confess, record, demonstrate. People tied to them. They'll deny it, but it's recorded anyway. They have like people who are in the other classes. You know, they do this differentially, but based on the capability of people's correlation and relationship to their needs to hide life aggressions, and in relationship to their needs to use criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments of negative treatments. Thank God I'm not a lawyer, but we're going to need lawyers. I'm not saying we have to use the branches of government as they were intended to be used. We have to use Marbury versus Madison as it was intended to be used and read. So follow mandated law. And make sure you have them respond to my behavior when it is aggressive or not, good or bad, whatever they want to say, especially bad, because that's involved with them sequence shifts. The second they say that, you're going to see more, because they also separate subjects. This is one of the things they do, where there is corruption, where the foreign and domestic are collusion with the interbranch. That this knew that we were going to be of syntax nature that has to value the identities of each branch. So it knew that we would have to, this knew that it was going to prevent exception nature from being used. In other words, where things are positive. In other words, the president says things. They say they change it. They say, "Oh, he's attacking this person." And then if the leaders that try to address it, oh, they're killing the markets saying these things. See, there's a nature as value / value as nature that it requires an identity of law or an identity of opinion nature or correlation nature to explain, to understand, or to counter that which employed, that which is incapable of defending itself and of being the Constitution unabridged simultaneously. Here, I lead you here alone. Boxing, Spino. Don't make allegations about me. Don't describe my behavior. We're leaving out the sequence shifts. Leaving out how they separate subjects so they can stack more fabricated audio and video, roles, forging and switching names. You rise. All rise. This is trial tribes. It's time.